Okay, we've got to talk about the Nazca mummies, in particular, this Nazca mummy. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, this specimen of one of the little Nazca mummies is just really fascinating, and we have to talk about him or her, in particular this implant, this apparent implant on its forehead, right in its third eye. What is this thing? Some viewers of the channel pointed out that this is representative of the Fibonacci sequence. Which is a famous sequence like this guy right here. Many of you are familiar with it in its connection or relationship to the golden ratio and the golden spiral. It's not like an exact golden spiral, but it's very similar. And you can see it show up not just in nature, but in art all over the world. It's really a fascinating sequence that might have come into play with the Nazca mummies. Asking ChatGPT about it, says the image shows what looks like a roughly circular brownish flower-like pattern embedded in a pale or chalky matrix. I didn't tell him that it was embedded in one of the Nazca mummies. Geometry in the Fibonacci connection. The visible pattern does display a spiral phyllotaxis type arrangement. Overlapping scales or plates that appear to radiate from a center with both clockwise and counterclockwise curves. This is the kind of double spiral geometry associated with Fibonacci numbers in many seed heads, pine cones, and similar natural structures. If you could count the spirals in each direction, you would probably find numbers close to a Fibonacci pair, for example, 8 and 13 or 13 and 21. So yes, this pattern type is consistent with a Fibonacci style arrangement, though we can't be certain it follows it precisely without an exact count. Now, I asked ChatGPT what this material was. It mentioned pine cones. Could we be looking at a pine cone or a fossilized pine cone or representative of a pine cone embedded in the forehead? And ChatGPT said, yes, absolutely. That could indeed be what it is. I can't tell for certain, but yeah, we might be looking at something at least representative of a pine cone in this being's forehead, right over its third eye, which of course is significant. Now, many in the modern day associate the pine cone with the third eye and enlightenment. Now, this is controversial and debated, and if you go on ChatGPT, it'll tell you, no, that's not the case. Ancient cultures didn't actually believe that. But this is certainly the common perception of the pine cone and its representation of the third eye and enlightenment, the pineal gland. Obviously you see lots of historical examples of that.
Here you have the eagle god with a pine cone. That was the symbol of fertility. Here you have the ancient winged cherub with a pine cone, which was the symbol of his power through the fertility cult. The biggest pine cone and staff you'll find here, one of the biggest at least, here in Osiris worship. This is the Egyptian deity. Osiris had the shepherd's rod with a pine cone on it. And there you have a Hindu deity with a pine cone in his hand. So they're all the same. The pine cone, symbol of the Mexican religion, pine trees, Christmas, all those interesting things. There you have Dionysius with his staff with a pine cone on it. A little bit of Bacchus with a pine cone on it. And there is the crozier, the shepherd's rod of the Pope. And it always has the pine cone on it. Do you think they know what they're doing, or do you think this is pure chance and incidental?
Yes, so based on the universal representation of the pine cone, I'm assuming it meant something more interesting than, fertility and the like. I don't think of pine cones necessarily as a super sexy symbol, but hey, let me know if you disagree. I think it was really interesting. The Mexican one, that was kind of cool because it seems to depict a pine cone, right on his third eye. an implant, maybe, over his third eye or representing his third eye. Then you can see he's holding pine cones, and there's a big pine tree right there. Now the caption here says corn or pine cones, but again, there's a big pine tree, and it looks like pine cones, and he's got the thing in his forehead, which might very well be a pine cone, which obviously is what we're talking about. A pine cone shape in a forehead, possibly representing the third eye. Now, we just heard, that the pine cones are represented all over. And again, if you go look at, mainstream history and, cultural understanding, you'll see that, they consider it New Agey to associate the pine cone with the third eye or the pineal gland. Yet, if that's the case, if it's simply a New Age belief, why is this specimen from hundreds or thousands of years ago having something that looks an awful lot like a pine cone in his third eye? My guess is that this being was a priest or priestess, that the gold plates in its face and the thing in its forehead representative, seemingly, of enlightenment or the third eye, marks it as, a spiritual being, a leader of some sort. So I think this is very likely some sort of priest or priestess, a leader in the clan. Now, who put these implants in this thing? Did other Nazca beings put these implants in? Did the beings that created them put these implants in? Did humans put these implants in? I'm assuming it wasn't the humans. They were a headhunting culture. The Nazca people of the region, probably not doing a lot of sophisticated surgery on alien beings. But, the Nazca beings themselves could have done it. I suspect not, because they were suffering from bacterial infections. They were getting injured by cats. They were, suffering mortal injuries and dying in various horrific ways. They don't seem to have had a great medical or, surgical ability. So I'm assuming, it was the beings that created them that put these things in, but I could be wrong, and it could be a mix. Maybe they put some of them in, like the ones on the face and stuff, but the ones in their bones, their creators put in. But I'm going to call this one the priest mummy. And I would really like to have a conversation in a different video about the implications of these beings believing in things like the third eye and enlightenment. What were they connected to? What were they trying to achieve with these implants? And did it work? According to Third Eye Pine Cones, throughout the span of recorded human history, pine cones have served as a symbolic representation of human enlightenment, the third eye, and the pineal gland. Conifer pine trees are one of the most ancient plant genera on the planet, having existed nearly 3 times longer than all flowering plant species. The pine cone is the evolutionary precursor to the flower, and its spines spiral in a perfect Fibonacci sequence in either direction, much like the sacred geometry of a rose or a sunflower. Now, this Fibonacci sequence isn't perfect sacred geometry, having looked into it a little bit, but it is very close, and it is associated with sacred geometry. And one can wonder if a culture is very interested in the pine cone, if it might not also be interested in sacred geometry as well. Some have pointed out the similarity to the Flower of Life graffiti found on the Temple of Osirion. I'm probably butchering that name. Really cool temple. I've talked a little bit about that before. But it turns out Pythagoras studied in Egypt for at least 10 years. And that is one of the theories about why we see that graffiti, the Flower of Life, at this temple.
Here between 200 BC and 200 AD. He said followers of Pythagoras came here to learn sacred geometry. That's why the Flower of Life is on the walls, and it was painted red ochre paint, 200 BC to 200 AD.
Yeah, there you go. There's the Flower of Life symbols at the temple in Egypt. similar to, but not exactly, like the implant in the being's forehead. So did this being or its creators or someone associated with it revere revere sacred geometry or its importance? It's really interesting how often sacred geometry does come up in the study of UFOs. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that were the case. It definitely appears like whoever this culture was, that they did have a connection between the pineal gland, the third eye, enlightenment, and pine cones. At least this thing is pretty much a dead ringer for a pine cone. Now, it could be, representative of a pine cone or something similar, but yeah, it's pretty much a pine cone, or a sculpture or, whatever, representative of a pine cone, implanted in this being's forehead. So yeah, an obvious connection between the third eye and pine cones, which seems to imply that it's not just New Age, mysticism, making that connection, that those other ancient cultures that use the pine cone motif might also have made that connection as well. So what does this imply about this being and or whoever put this implant in it? Were they in some way connected to those cultures? I mean, it is a worldwide motif pretty much. You find this all over the place. So if that's the case, somebody was getting around. I mean, someone was getting around, whether it was the beings or Atlantis or Lemuria, some lost ancient civilization, or maybe a combination, very likely a combination of beings in ancient civilization people. Somebody was really getting around and spreading their motifs and their culture and their knowledge all over the world. Again, probably we're looking at multiple different groups there, but somebody seems to have been interacting with the Nazca beings, or their creators were the ones doing these interactions around the world. And of course, there may be very modern connections as well. I've shared before about there are characters found in writing at the Citadel where the Nazca mummies are found, supposedly, if those photos and videos are legit, that correspond exactly to characters found on the Boogosphere, which may have, Hindu or, ancient Indian characters on there. Some really interesting stuff is connected, seemingly, all to do with ancient cultures and beings, but with effects that are still ongoing. The Nazca mummies, there's good evidence, as I've talked about multiple times, to indicate that they're still around. Obviously, the Boogosphere is still here, and there are other spheres all over the world. This stuff is ongoing. That's why this is so important to figure out. Yes, it's an intriguing riddle of the ancient past that's just fascinating in and of itself. But it has repercussions that are valid today. And if we could figure out what the heck was going on back then, we might have a clue as to what the heck is going on now. So let me know your thoughts about it all in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you want to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, consider grabbing a coffee mug or a t-shirt in the merch store below, or by becoming a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.